What's going on, guys? Welcome back to review and discussion for UnOrdinary episode 270, 284. My bad. But yeah, so this episode, upon rereading it, despite being longer, or at least feeling longer than recent episodes, not much actually happened. Upon rereading it again, it was still a good chapter, and I did still really enjoy the bits that we got, but not a whole lot happened that personally I feel really warrants too much discussion, or rather, in-depth discussion like this. So episode starts off with Remy walking through the halls at Wellston, thinking back to the last conversation she had with Arlo, thinking back on everything about not wanting her to drag him down anymore, about his reaction and thoughts on Ray and everything. And Remy even brings up that she shouldn't have led like the way she did because she didn't have any concrete proof, but hearing Arlo talk the way he did about Ray really still hurt her, and that's understandable. But like I said, I do feel like there is more at play here with Arlo's character, because if he really did feel that, I don't think he'd be reflecting on everything and thinking on everything like we saw him doing when he was at the bureau. So Remy also then reflects that she didn't have proof that Valerie was Vulcan, even though she does know for a fact. So as she's walking, she then bumps into Arlo, and and just kind of like, oh, speak of the devil. And she tells him, like, hey, I'm sorry about, like, what I said. Like, sorry, I got a little out of hand. And Arlo just like, well, I'm glad to hear that you're coming to your senses. And she kind of just brushes him off. Remy doesn't really want to talk to Arlo right now. And it makes sense. It's also kind of just strange, honestly. I feel like Arlo's done a lot worse, but Remy was still cool with it. I won't get into it. Anyway, so Remy just says, hey, I'm busy. I gotta get to the safe house, so I'll talk to you later. But then Arlo tells her, hey, your extracurriculars aren't safe. Vigilante stuff. You shouldn't do it anymore. And Remy, complete boss move. As stupid as it is, the things she's getting herself into, but it's also kind of noble this time around. It's also no, I shouldn't say that actually. But Remy does like stand up to Arlo, which is good for her character, because we're seeing it's kind of the inverse of like her versus John, actually, now that I think about it. Anyway, she basically just tells Arlo, like, Arlo, you worry about yourself and I'll take care of myself. And that was honestly a really cool moment for Remy. Now, despite that, though, I do feel like this is Arlo talking in code, so to speak. Basically, he doesn't want to risk his position at the Bureau of Authority. But we know that Arlo definitely is suspicious because he wants to investigate this Ember stuff. So he can't tell Remy because Cassandra, he wants to keep Cassandra as an ally, and she told him, like, hey, remember, like, what you see here stays here. So he can't tell her, hey, they're investigating you, don't do any dumb shit, they know you're a vigilante. So he has to just be like, hey, be careful, like, you should stop. But I think pretty soon that Arlo will reveal a bit more. Maybe someone will pick up on his language, possibly Sarah, because Sarah is really clever, and so is John, actually. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot more at play with that Arlo that Remy herself isn't picking up on, and we know that Remy can't really pay attention to a lot of things, is how I'll put it. Anyway, then we do cut to Remy at the safe house, like she said she was heading, and here we see Dylan and Evie talking, asking about John and Sarah. She hears them, and they're both just kind of like, John and Seraphina are back at school, but like they're not around, like we haven't seen them, like what's going on? And she just lets them know that, hey, everything's fine, they're good, they're just setting up the self-defense room, that they're probably there right now. And the three of them, Roland's with them, with Evie and Dylan. They kind of like light up and they're like, oh, hey, like, let's go check it out. Like, let's go see what it's going to be like. So they head over. And then John and Sarah we cut to John and Sarah. They're setting up the room, but they're really worn out. That's when the 3 low tiers show up and offer to help set up. And John starts smiling. He just gives the ever slightest smile. And it's just so cool. He's just like, man, they're really excited. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And guys, it's finally happening. Like what I've wanted, what I think a lot of us have wanted for so long. John teaching people about their abilities. And actually, now that I think about it, this just came to my head. John's teaching self-defense. I wonder if, because people know what John can do with his ability, I wonder if people will start asking, hey, since you know a lot about abilities, can you teach us how to use... No. The people at Rowden Hill... I don't think the people at everyone at Rowden Hill knows about John, actually. I think only the Royals and everyone. I think we still don't know for sure. But I think it's possible someone will bring up, hey, wait, John, you know a lot about abilities. Can you teach us what we can do with our abilities? And that's when John's going to be like, Anyway, just a thought that came to my mind. So, after they finish setting up, Seraphina, Dylan, and Evie are all exhausted, but Seraphina, Roland, and Evie are exhausted after kind of moving all the equipment and everything, but Dylan kind of still has a lot of energy and asks John if he can get a sneak peek of the lessons, and John then gives Dylan a bit of instruction on what to do. Dylan kind of like goes to like punch like the punching bag with his thumb in his fist, and John's like, don't do that, you're gonna break your thumb. And then he like gives him real advice and everything, and then he gives him a demonstration, and during which he says, hey, you want to think of like when you're practicing like this, think of someone who really pisses you off. John, of course, starts thinking of Agent 23 as he's standing to get the demonstration, and John starts going off on the punching bag. He starts really getting into it. And Sarah takes notice of his reaction to takes notice of his actions, and we see her thinking like ... Evie, Roland, and Dylan are all kind of like shocked because John kind of goes a bit far and he knocks the punching bag over too. And so John kind of like takes a breath and just like, okay, Dylan, like, you're up. And Dylan's just kind of like, what? So as Dylan starts giving his turn, then John tells himself that the next time he encounters Agent 23, he's going to take him down. And honestly, I feel like that's really good motivation for John, because that's kind of the first time John's had like a full-on loss like that in a long time. And it's also someone who hurt Seraphina, which of course John's not okay with. But yeah, that's kind of where the episode ends. And like I said, there wasn't really much to talk about that warranted in-depth discussion, in my opinion. But yeah, overall, the episode was still really good, despite it actually being kind of... There was a lot of food, not much flavor though, is how I'll say it for this chapter. Like it felt bigger than recent chapters, but the overall substance of everything was a bit small compared to how much stuff Uru has been able to cram into recent episodes as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And you know, John smiling, that's also always a major bonus. So overall, I would honestly give this episode a level 7. It's a pretty good episode, just not too much substance to really dive into, but you know, still pretty good. So yeah, and like I said, I do feel like Sarah and John will probably... Miriam also brought this up in the comments of the reaction. Sarah will probably bring John aside and talk to him about like his reaction to the punching bag during when Dylan was getting that quick lesson from him. So if Sarah doesn't talk to him before classes start, I feel like there is possibility that John could get a bit obsessive with preparing himself to take down Agent 23 and might scare off a few people. And then who knows, Blake and Remy might be like, John, like, you know, we wanted you to do this and we still do, but like, are you okay? Like you're getting a little more aggressive. And that's also something that happened with Serafina when she was training Evie, Roland, and Dylan. And back then, Evie didn't mind. Evie didn't mind. She thought that what Serafina was doing was okay. But Roland was like, Sarah, you're kind of taking this too far. So it happened to Sarah. I think it could definitely happen to John. But we'll just have to wait and see. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And as always, everyone, see you, Space Cowboy.